Lisa, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
So good to be with you once again. And for those listening, we had Lisa on a couple of episodes ago. We were talking all things feeling lost in our connection with our partners, which is always crops up for a lot of us parents. So Lisa had so many good nuggets of wisdom. So for those of you listening who haven't heard that episode, go back. I'll pop the details in the show notes so that you can see and get all the hot tips when it comes to relationships from Lisa. But I felt as though there was a missing piece in this, and I really want to delve into love languages today. For those of you listening, let me give you a quick intro to Lisa. So she is a certified relationship and self-love coach, a master NLP practitioner, a speaker, the author of the book Love More, and the founder of her own coaching business, LFW Life Coaching. So very well versed with this conversation. Lisa, I want to start with, look, basically the challenge that always comes up with parents, and they're often DMing me about, is I just don't feel seen in this relationship. I feel underappreciated, and I'm just resentful because we're passing ships. We're doing the same, Groundhog Day. Every day is sort of the same thing. And really, I'm not feeling the love. And I wonder if there's an element to the busyness that we experience as parents. Is that leading us to kind of, feel that massive disconnect, even when it comes to love languages, etc. This inequality that we can experience, the tit for tat that we often, those sort of behaviors that we do, like, I did this, no, but you did that. And, all of these things that always come up with our conversation. So what I'd love to know, and I have read the book, how many love languages?
The 5 love languages.
The 5 love languages. Yeah. For those interested, there is a book as well. So I'll pop the details in the show notes for that book too. But can you talk to us about the importance of love languages and why do we need to know about them?
Yeah, sure. So you at the start, you mentioned about busyness, and 100%. So many people are so busy with their everyday living that they can forget, or it's not at the top of their mind to make their partner feel loved, because they don't often feel it with themselves. So again, it comes back down to the self-love concept that I really like to talk about in my coaching. I do believe that the more self-love we can give ourselves, the more we can give to other people. I know that's very cliche and it can be like a bit airy-fairy, but there is a lot of science and truth to it. The more that we know ourselves, the more that we listen to our truest higher self, the more that we figure out what it is that we actually want, we then can love other people more. So that's definitely a thing. With the love languages, they are so important and they have literally saved relationships. I'm talking about couples coming to me on the brink of a divorce, but being able to rekindle the relationship purely by learning a lot about their partner's love languages. Now, the reason why it's so important is because when we come into a relationship, we often give our partner what we want. We give them what we need. But it's not what they want. So then they don't feel loved. So for example, if my partner's love language is quality time and mine is receiving gifts, and I'm getting my partner gifts all the time, but I'm not spending time with him like he wants, then he isn't going to appreciate that gift as much as I thought. And then I'd be like, why don't you appreciate this gift? So much thought was put into it. He's like, oh, it's amazing. But what he really wants is quality time. And if I don't know that, I'm going to then get upset and I'm going to feel like it's something within me. And then I'm going to feel like, oh, this relationship is not working. I need to leave.
And that person's going to feel like, well, they're not hearing me. They're not really filling up my love cup. Like, they're off on a tangent buying me gifts. Like, that's nice. But as you said, so both people feel that disconnect.
Yes. It really can make the person feel unseen, unheard, and unloved. And when we really look at what people want, when the research is saying the biggest thing that people want in a relationship is to feel seen, is to feel heard, and to feel loved in their own way. So we have to understand how our partner wants to be loved and what that actually looks like and putting that into practice.
Where do we start?
Asking questions. Again, like I mentioned in the previous episode, what we want to do is ask more questions and stop assuming we know what our partner wants. So the book is a great place to start. I always get my couples or individuals to read the 5 love languages, because you have to first know what yours is. as well.
Yes.
It is important to know that. And it took me up until I was in my late 30s to figure mine out. I thought mine was one thing. And then I figured after reading the book that it was a completely other thing. And there's also a quiz you can do online. And it was so interesting because I didn't think that that was, but then it made so much sense when I learned my love language. And I was like, oh, okay, this is why I haven't been feeling loved, because I didn't know it. I didn't articulate it to my partner. I was expecting other things. He was still doing his thing, but it wasn't what I needed, and I didn't even know.
So what's yours? Out of interest.
Yeah, so mine, I always thought mine was words of affirmation, which is my second.
Okay.
But my first is actually receiving gifts.
No way.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. There was a bit of, like, I felt judgment towards myself with this because I always linked it to something materialistic.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm not really that materialistic. Like, I like nice things, but when I read about what receiving gifts is, it's about the thought put in behind the gift.
Yeah.
And so when somebody gets me a gift that is something that I will really like, I feel more loved. And so now that I know my love language and I know the meaning behind it, I don't feel bad. I'm just like, this is my love language.
Yeah.
This is how I feel loved when I receive gifts. And there's nothing wrong with that. And now when I met my partner, I was able to tell him, and I feel like it's brought us closer because he knows what I need and he was able to tell me what he needs.
I feel like I'm all of them. Like, I need all of them.
Yeah,
like, give me the gifts, give me the love, give me, whatever it looks like. Touch me,
tell me how
time. That's why I asked my husband this he's come on 2 podcasts over the last 160 plus episodes. First, one was for our 100th episode, one was the 150th. And I think there was a question from the audience around, like, what do you think Leonie's love language is? And he's like, yeah, definitely all of them. Like, she's hard work, man.
She just at different times. And tonight it could be physical touch.
Exactly.
And quality time. And I can't keep up. And you're right. There are times where we will need a mix of both. Just because receiving gifts is my favorite, it doesn't mean that that's what I'm going to need when I'm pissed off at my partner. What I need is potentially a hug. So it's physical touch in that moment. So it's not just like a one box fits that person and we need to associate that love language. It is about then incorporating emotional intelligence into the relationship and looking at your partner and saying, right now, he or she looks so sad and so upset. So what they would need is maybe a hug or maybe me to tell them that I appreciate them. But the way to figure that out is asking questions. You know, so many people, especially women, they're like, if I open up to my partner, he goes into fix-it mode. He goes into solutions, and I don't want him to fix it. I just want him to listen and to give me a hug. Or sometimes I don't want to be touched, but if he just asks, and then I would tell him what I want, and then I give him what he wants, and it's all okay. But most people don't do that. That's when the disconnect comes in and the frustration.
100%. So I'm thinking about the person who might be listening right now going, cool, that's really great. I've never really heard of these love languages before, but I'm driving home from work and I'm about to meet my partner and we're about to have dinner and I might raise the conversation over a glass of wine. Where do they start if they want to know what you mentioned there's the quiz in the book, but is there sort of an easy place to open up the conversation?
Yeah. You could first tell them about the 5 love languages. So we've got words of affirmations, and that's really when your partner likes to be told how much they are appreciated, how much you love them, how good they look, that you appreciate their cooking, that you just think they look great today. Constant reinforcement using words.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you've got physical touch, which is pretty self-explanatory, but this is where a lot of people get it wrong. It's not just about physical intimacy or sex. It could just be a kiss. It could be a hug. It could be a cuddle. It could be something so minor. It's not always just about what happens in the bedroom. It could, just walking by and giving that person a kiss.
Yeah.
That's a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Then you've got acts of service, and this is when you're doing something for your partner. So you're making them dinner, you're making them coffee, you're going to get the kids for them to relieve that workload. So it's the physical doing of something that person finds the most attractive and most helpful for them. Then you've got, what's the next one? Quality time. Yeah. So that's when that person always wants to spend time with their person. So if they do, we live in such busy lives, but if they've got 2 hours with their partner, they want to spend 2 hours with them, being present with them, actively listening, asking questions, going out. And it might not just be going out, it could be staying in, but it really is about spending that one-on-one time together.
Was
Have I
that all
missed
of
one?
them?
I think I've missed one.
So we had acts of service, quality time, physical touch,
Oh, receiving gifts.
gifts. Your one, baby. Your
My
time
one.
to shine.
Yeah, so this is when it is about a physical gift, and it could be something so small and it can be something big. And different occasions you would have different things, but it's about the thought put into it. So if I don't love flowers and my partner brings me flowers, he could be like, but you appreciate physical presence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I don't like flowers. So it's not the same thing. It's saying that this is something that is important to you. Like if I've said, like, I love chocolate. And so when my partner gets me that chocolate, I'm like, oh my God, you've thought about me.
Yes.
And you know the flavor that I like. And you have that.
Yes.
Like that is so sweet.
Yes.
You know, or something that I've said once. And he'll next time I see him, he'll come with that. I'm like, oh, that's so cute.
Yes.
So-
my thing with the gifts was when my husband and I were dating, I'm obsessed with the Bueno chocolate bars, but like the white chocolate ones.
Yeah.
So it's like $2, right?
Yeah,
from Coles or whatever.
Yeah.
And like he'd every now and then just have a little Bueno bar, like when I walked into his house, like on the bench. And I was like, the fact that you, again, that's even thought about it.
Yes.
It's so much more to me than, that really shiny thing that might cost an arm and a leg, but kind of is just like a nice to have.
Yes.
It doesn't quite have the same
Yes.
a level of sentiment around it.
That's
And
right.
it's funny because if I reflect on my relationships, I've definitely had relationships in the past where, for example, I dated someone who worked a lot investment banking.
Okay.
Round the clock worked.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really attractive and really liked that level of motivation and dedication to his job. And he liked the nice things. I like nice things. There were other elements to our relationship that I was like, yep, there's definitely something here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think fundamentally our love languages were misaligned and perhaps misaligned values as well, where, he would opt to probably stay at work till 2 a.m. and be my weekend boyfriend, but then would buy me a really expensive something on Saturday and be like, well, how are you not happy? And it's like, well, hold on, I can do without that really expensive, whatever it is. Just come home early, mate. Like, I just want to see
time with you.
Because that for me in that relationship, and as you said, it could be phases of life as well. Things change, but certainly I was craving quality time.
Yes.
He probably appreciated gifts more.
Yes.
And so he's showering me with these gifts and being like, why aren't you the happiest person alive? So I get how this disconnect led to our demise of our relationship. And you probably see it too.
I see it all the time. And so this is why I love languages, and that core is understanding both of them that we spoke about in the last episode. Understanding what is it that your partner is actually saying to you. So when they come to you, what are you really missing? Are you missing the connection, the significance, the certainty, variety? And how is it that what is it that is going to help you feel more loved? If I'm listening to you, and people often talk, you can often pick up someone's love language by the way they talk, if they're being really open and honest in the relationship. Like, if the female's constantly saying, oh, I really like this, or I want to get this, or I'm really missing that time with you, then that's probably quality time is her love language. Or I really love when you help out and you do the dishes and you do take the garbage out without me having to tell you. It could be acts of service. So you really need to listen to what your partner is saying and then ask a question. So you want to bring up the love languages to your partner and then ask questions. What makes you feel most loved? What gives you energy? What gives you the ability to then give back more? Because so many couples will come to me and they're like, if she or he just gave me a little bit of that, I could then give so much more. And I know I'm like that. I just need a little bit. Like sometimes I just need that little bit of physical touch, or I just need to be told, you're doing such a good job at this parenting thing. And I'm like, okay, I can do more of it, So it's about knowing what your partner needs in that time. And again, that's the emotional intelligence coming into the relationship as well.
Yeah, I love that. And if I'm thinking about holistically what we've spoken about, and particularly from the last episode too, to tie all of this together, in the last episode we were talking about our core needs. What are the things fundamentally that we need on the daily and as human beings, right? And ensuring that we have enough of that balance in our lives. And now we're bringing together the love language and being aware of our own and that of our partners. And you always stress about also just taking ownership and loving ourselves through this journey so that we can love our partners in return. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what that could look like outside of the needs, outside of the love languages? Is there something else that we're missing or could start doing today that could really help us?
Yeah. You could really focus on what is it that you want to have in your life. So many of us get so stuck in the past and we live there, or we're so far into the future, right? So many people are struggling to live in the present moment. And when they do think about life, they're like, oh, this happened and this happened in the past. And I'm so stressed because the kids and the husband. And so another thing that makes coaching a bit different to other types of therapy, we talk about it is that more of a future focus. What is it that you actually want to have, and start working towards getting that? So I always ask my people, tell me what you, if we have different goals, but some people will come to me for self-love, or they'll say, okay, I want to have more confidence and less of the comparison state that I'm finding that I am in with other families or even with other women. I just want to feel more confident in myself. Or they'll say, I really want to have that healthy relationship, or I want to have that job, or I want to have, X amount of money. So I say, okay, first figure out what you want to have, but don't get stuck there. What I'm finding is people say, once I have that, I'll be happy, Lisa, I'll be fine. And I'm like, that's not how it works, because too many times I've seen people get that and they're still not happy. So what we do a coaching technique called the be, do, have model. So once I figure out what people want to have, we then work back and I say, who do you need to be to get to what you want to have? And so what that could look like if someone says, I want to have unconditional love. So I say to them, well, what does unconditional love look like? So you could journal to this yourself. Like, what does unconditional love mean to me? Because it means something different to every person. How do I want that to show up in my life? What does it mean? And so then what you want to do once you get clear on that, you want to become unconditional love. So that's a bit of a confusing concept to think about, because we don't often think about that. So anything that we want to have, we want to become that thing. And so what I mean by that, when I wanted to attract unconditional love, I knew I had to become that. And then what does that mean? What does it mean to become unconditional love? It means to accept all of me, my flaws, my good bits, my ugly bits, all of me. It's not to say that, oh, I can do this bad thing and I'm okay. No, it's about me taking accountability, but not punishing myself. Unconditional love is not being self-critical. It's not body shaming. It's not comparing. It's loving myself entirely like I love my children. So in order to have that, I have to first become that. So I teach my clients, what does it to mean to become that? And they embody those qualities completely. And so you can do that through meditation. And this is the second part of that strategy, where it's the doing. Once you know what you need to become, you then need to do those things to work towards it. So I knew I needed to be kind to myself. What does that look like? That's giving that time for myself to have a bath, to, have that glass of wine, or to go out for a walk, or to go and see friends, and to then show kindness to other people. I would buy people coffee. I would get people dinner. I would do those things that I want someone to do for me. But you have to embody that internally and do the things that you would want somebody to do for you. And that's how you then attract unconditional love.
I love that. I'm thinking about myself, and I think my biggest insecurity often is I am a recovering perfectionist, right? I always compare myself, right? I'm like, oh, they're doing this and they're doing that, and I need to do that too, and what I'm doing is not good enough. And so that comparison creeps in. It motivates me. And I think it's let's go deep. I think it's an upbringing thing where basically, right, it's basically like that sort of like I'm an achiever because, that probably an element of conditional love. I mean, I think we probably all grew up with an element of that, particularly our generation, where it's like, you need to strive to be great and all of that. And there was a lot of that with my migrant parents, who are very fortunate to be in this country. Leonie, make the most of it and excel in everything that you do. But now adult Leonie, who knows that it's irrational thinking, that what I'm doing is probably good enough. Sometimes I slip back into that, it's not good enough, and you're not the 1%, and you're not, like, for example, for a podcast, right? Like, why am I not the best podcast? And I always slip back into that. One thing I'm trying to do myself is just to kind of actually praise and honor those that I really look up to. For example, let's talk podcasts, like those that are really doing really well, that I believe are doing well. I will constantly, praise them and compliment them and build relationships with people like that, rather than kind of be sitting all disgruntled in my own little house being like, oh, well, you're not good enough, or, feel bad for yourself. But I was just curious if you have people who come to you about that comparison thing,
Yeah.
steps that they could potentially take.
Yeah. So I'm always finding out, okay, that's what you don't want and that's what you do have. What is it that you actually want? And the opposite to comparison is usually to be creative. So we want to be in our creative state. And then I talk to people about, okay, so what does that look like to be in your creative state? And they said, well, I want to write more, or I want to draw more, or I want to dance more, or I want to feel more free. Okay, so who do you have to become to have that? Well, I need to just go with the flow, be more in my feminine energy, let things go. I don't need to be so structured. I need to be aware of where my mindset is going, all the time. Am I on this rat race, or can I be conscious to stop and ask myself, is this so important right now? Can I leave that room for creativity? So once you get all those qualities around who you need to become, then you want to do action steps that help you get closer to there. So if it is like writing that you love to do, incorporating 5 to 10 minutes a day, just start writing. It's so small, but you will find that creative energy will stop you from being comparative. It will stop you from going onto social media and comparing. It will stop that mindset of, oh, I need to be better, or I need to do this. No, because you're actually focusing on what is it that you actually want. And most people don't know what they want. I know when I went through my divorce and my coach said to me, Lisa, what do you want? It blew my mind. I was like, what is that question?
Yeah.
That terminology. I was like, what does that even mean? What do you want? And I was like, I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
So we got to figure that part out. And when the more you figure yourself out and the more self-love you give you and the more time you give yourself, the relationships you have with the external just enhance by so much. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's like bringing in that type of energy, like you're exhibiting a certain energy and you're going to bring that in rather than that needy, desperate, I'm not good enough, toxic energy that you'll probably continue to find examples of in your external world to validate those feelings.
That's right.
It's like, no, I'm going to actively change. And for me, 100%, I'm the same in that when I notice that little comparison creeping up or that not good enough critical talk, I think awareness is a great place to start. I'm aware of it and then I might just change tacks. I'll go for a run or I'll like move my body in a way, or I'll listen to a podcast. I just kind of get out of it, or I'll journal, or if I can't journal because I'm so like angry that I'm just feeling yuck at that time, and so therefore I'm more physical, I'll then the next morning maybe journal about it. So I can kind of learn from those feelings. So it is a continuous journey. I don't think any of us have it perfect, but to your point, it's like, okay, well, there are tools and techniques here that we could put in place, like the journaling, like knowing what we want, and then the doing, to sort of refocus us.
Yeah, because you mentioned when you're in that state, you just get up and you change and you do something, and that's such an important point because what we say is when our physiology changes, our psychology changes. So when we physically move our bodies, our mindset shifts.
Yeah.
So it's like when people are in that state, I say people put the phone down or get out of that wherever you're in at the moment, if you can, and just go walk outside, do 5 minutes of meditation, like lying down. It's amazing what that energy shift, because the body is energy and it needs to constantly move. And if there's angry energy, that's okay. It's allowed to be there. People are like, oh, I can't be angry. I'm like, well, it's a human emotion. Yes, it's okay to be angry, but it's then what do you do with it after that?
Yes, love
Release
that.
it.
Yes.
Well, first acknowledge it, that it's there and it's okay to be there, and then find healthy ways to release it.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Rounding out this conversation, is there any last final words you're wanting to tell our audience and listeners when it comes to, I guess, trying to get our relationship, or sort of trying to prioritize our relationships with ourselves and then with our partner?
Yeah, it always starts with self. So spend as much time as you can in a day getting to know yourself more. Like, we are always evolving and changing. We go through so many deaths and births within ourselves. And so sitting with ourselves and finding stillness and finding out who we are, what we want at this stage in our life, being able to then communicate that to the people that we love will help us feel like we're living in our truth and help our relationship enhance.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Lisa, for your time. And so that people can find you, I will drop your Insta handle in the show notes. And it was an absolute pleasure as always. We'll have to get you back on at some point again.
Thank you so much for having me.